So last time we talked about overcoming worry, in particular, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, where he transitions from the Beatitudes and then talks about worry about finances and resources. Today, we're going to move into Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, where he talks about judgment. And really, it's the same theme of overcoming worry. Unhealthy judgment comes from worry. Healthy judgment comes from discernment. So we're going to talk about that. Stick with me for the next 3 sessions. I think you're going to benefit from it. Hi, my name is Scott Gossenberger, and thanks for watching my YouTube channel. Would you subscribe? Just take a moment, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell. That way you can get notifications. Now let's get right at it. So Jesus really identifies this idea of judgment. And when you think about judgment, most of us think about it in a negative way. When I thought about this, I actually thought about 2 times in my life, most recently when I purchased a car. We always buy used cars because we pay cash for them. And the first car I bought when I left pharmaceuticals and needed to have a car was a BMW 545i. Now that car was beautiful. It was a great car in terms of its appearance. It had about 90-some thousand miles on it, but not a scratch on it. The car was white and pretty and fast and beautiful. Now, I remember going to look at the car, and the guy was telling me that, hey, you know what? I've got lots of people looking at this car, so if you don't buy it, I'm sure it won't be available. So now I was worried that if I didn't act fast, that car would not be mine. And I had already fallen in love with the way it looked. And I drove it around, and it was pretty fast. And I was, I guess, really concerned that people would look at me, and say, hey, Scott's driving a really fancy car. If I drove something else, maybe they wouldn't be quite as impressed with who I was. So I knew that if I didn't buy the car right then and there, that it wouldn't be mine. So I bought the car. A little over a year later, I could tell something was going on with it, and I decided I probably should sell this thing. It had a little over 100,000 miles on it, about almost 110,000 miles on it, and the transmission seemed to be giving me a little bit of notice something's not right. Well, before I could sell the car, the transmission died, and I took it to a dealer to have it looked at to see if I could have it fixed. They said that it would cost $7,500 to fix that car. You know how much that car was worth? $9,500. So I essentially decided it wasn't worth fixing. The auto mechanic said he would buy it from me for $2,000, and I was now carless. I rode a bike for several months until we were able to save up enough money to buy the next car, which was a Honda Civic. It was very plain looking, but got great gas mileage and had a good reputation for not breaking down. I drove that car for nearly 10 years and never had one single problem with that car. Now, it didn't look good at all. And I did my due diligence when I was looking at buying that car. I wanted to find out, are Honda Civics reliable? And they were. That car actually worked out really well. And the reason why that purchase was so much better was because I applied good judgment. The first car that I bought, that BMW, was very pretty, but I made that decision based on worry. That gave me poor judgment. The Civic was purchased based on good judgment. So let's look at the scripture. Jesus talks about worry. He talks about judgment, good and bad judgment. Today, we're just going to introduce the subject of judgment, and then next time we'll look at unhealthy judgment, and then finally look at healthy judgment. So this is what Jesus says. He says, verse 1 of chapter 7 of Matthew, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged." Then he says in verse 2, "For in the same way that you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." Now let's just stop right there. What's Jesus saying? He uses this word. It's a Greek word, kaino. The word actually means this. It means to set apart or distinguish between things. So that's really a broad definition. And so whether it's good or appropriate or whether it's inappropriate is the context in which the scripture uses it. So kaino can be like, I mean, you could set something apart in a positive way, or you can set something apart in a prejudicial way, which may not be so good. So Jesus lays this out, and he talks about judgment, and he says, the way you judge, the way you kaino, if we're going to use the Greek word, the way you set something apart is how you are also going to be set apart. In other words, how you apply it will be applied to you. I would tell you this, and you probably know this too. This is the most misquoted, misused verse probably in the entire Bible. I'm sure you've had somebody say to you when you offer a criticism or an observation that maybe they don't really like, you've heard them say, well, don't judge. It almost comes back sort of aggressively. Don't judge. How are you judging me? I can't believe that you're judging me. And essentially what the person is doing is they are wanting to insulate themselves from any kind of either accountability or any questioning of their behavior or their motives. So in that sense, the scripture is being applied inappropriately in a way to push back on the accountability or the judgment that is being, brought towards them. So what's Jesus saying? Jesus is saying in this portion of scripture, in this portion of his Sermon on the Mount, he's saying that it depends. So is judgment bad? It depends. It depends on how you apply it. Because he's going to talk about, in the next few verses, he's going to talk about pigs, judging whether you throw your pearls before pigs. Then he talks about, judgment when it comes to judging somebody and the plank that they have in their eye, the speck that they have in their eye and the plank that you have in your eye. And then he talks about just this broad understanding of judgment as it relates to false teachers. Now, we're going to look over the next couple of sessions on, first, Jesus applies unhealthy judgment, and then we'll look at healthy judgment and see how we can apply judgment in a way that delivers us from worry and actually positions us in a way that we don't fall into the traps that the enemy wants to place in our lives. So join me next time. We'll look at unhealthy worry or unhealthy judgment. Don't forget to ring the bell so that you can be notified on the upcoming videos.